All right, thanks, John. All right, the hour has struck, so I'd like to say good evening, and I'd like to call.
Volume up.
Set? Steve?
Yes.
Okay, thanks. All right. Good evening. I'd like to call to order the joint meeting of the Norwich Public Utilities Board of Commissioners and the Sewer Authority for Tuesday, October 25th, 2022. We have people calling in, we have people on Zoom tonight. So for all those speaking, I would ask you to state your name for the record and speak clearly so you can be heard. All right. Our first item on the agenda is a 15-minute public comment period. Is there anyone from the public who would like to speak?
We have Dave P. Guest. Is that Dave 4?
That is Dave 4.
Okay.
You were there.
Yes, he does. Anyone else for the
I
guest?
don't see anyone who's not associated with NPU.
All right. Okay. Well, if anyone does arrive late, we can all reopen the public comment period. All right, moving on to agenda item 3, approval of the minutes for the September 27th meeting, which was in your board package. I assume everyone's had a chance to read it. I will entertain a motion.
So moved.
Thank you, Bob.
I'll second it.
Thank you, Bill.
Okay.
All right. Is there any discussion on the minutes? All right, hearing none. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those in favor say nay. I'm sorry, all those opposed say nay. Are there any abstentions?
Abstain, I wasn't there, so.
All right, thank you, Michael. All right, the motion carries. We have a quorum with 3. All right, the motion carries.
Actually 4.
Oh, but
You say.
Oh, he did say yes, yeah.
Abstain. All right, perfect. All right, moving on to agenda item 4, which are the information updates, which were provided in your board package. We have the leadership team template and the financial update. We'll start with the leadership team template first. Are there any questions or comments on the leadership team template?
I have a couple, Stu.
All right, Phil?
So, Larry, under the landfill at the wastewater treatment plant, did we get DEP's approval for our the latest extension?
Yes, we did. Well, I think
Okay.
by 2024, I think we'll have to extend it again. I forgot the date, but yes, they will extend it again.
Okay, and then the other question I had was regarding the Sawmill Estates, I guess Risley and Harris and Emerald Lane. Are there utilities being provided to those 2 subdivisions? And if so, what utility?
Can you repeat that again, Bill?
For the Sawmill Estates and Emerald Lane sites, are there utilities being extended?
Want to take that one, Mary Lou?
Oh, I didn't hear. What was that, Chris? I'm sorry.
Yes, they are being extended,
What utilities?
electric, and I'm not positive about the gas. I'd have to look at that.
Okay, but not sewer or water, right?
No, not as I know.
Okay, thank you.
I'll double check for you, Bill.
Okay, thank you very much.
You're welcome.
And then I was just wondering what the 2 MPU projects that we're getting support from Senator Blumenthal and Murphy are.
One is the relining of the sewer mains throughout Greenville. The other is the interconnection with Groton that would serve a number of. Both of them have endorsed those projects and they're seeking funding. Separate from that, Congressman Courtney has also put in for money that would support the relining of the sewer lines from Greenville. So we're keeping a close eye on all 3 of those opportunities.
Okay, good, thank you. And maybe one more. Larry, what's the status? You hear anything on the status of waterline extension to Bosbrook?
We have not heard it back on that application yet.
Okay. And the last one for you, Larry. Sorry for all the questions. Are we on track for getting the advertising for the bids for the sewer plant upgrades on the 22nd? On November 2022?
We received comments about 2 weeks ago from Carlos. It was, a hand up to 20 comments, nothing that was surprising. We're working with CDM to address those comments to respond back to them. Once
Good.
we respond back, we expect to get a letter from Carlos. So we're very close.
All right, thank you, Larry.
Of course.
This week, right, Larry, on that, to review?
Yeah, I think it's either Thursday or Friday of a meeting with CDM to go over our responses.
Just sort of a general question, I guess, but maybe specific to that project. Do we have any sense of what's happening to overall project costs versus the estimates, and what the availability is going to be of state or federal compensation to offset that?
So we have set reimbursement rates for the sewer plant, and it's 20, 30, or 50% based on standard sewer, nitrogen removal for CSOs. So that's the standard funding of that. There is a chance that we will get additional monies from some of the, the grants. We're keeping our eyes open for that. And we will not know the true cost of that project until we go out to bid. It's been so in flux with all of these supply chain issues. We're seeing more delays than we are huge increases in most of our stuff, because most of the stuff we bid. This is a brand new project. We expect it to be going up.
Okay.
Okay, but I had a couple of questions for Eric. The Greenville Dam repairs. It says here that they were being done in late summer. Have those been started or finished, or where are they?
Yeah, they were completed. I apologize. I was actually out on military leave when we were doing the report input, so I missed them. But we finished the dam. We actually got more work done this year than we have, at least in the previous 7 years that I've been here. The drought was not fortunate on the water side of the house, but it was very fortunate for us in getting all the work that we needed to do on the dam.
Nice, nice. And the Second Street Hydro, I know last time we talked, it said that the contractor had found some erosion in the duct, and that might be causing the cavitation. Is there a schedule to repair that?
So we made those repairs about a month ago. The problem is we haven't had enough water to run. So we're hoping to run over the next week or so, and to see how those repairs took place.
All right, thanks, Eric. Back to Mary Lou, here, the DOT is going to put in 20 charging stations, right? Down, is that going to be in the commuter parking lot or actually on DOT property, or?
They're on DOT property. There will not be for public use. It's only for their use only.
Wow. Okay.
And Bill, to get back to your two questions, it's electric only on those two subdivisions.
Okay, thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Okay, but we're selling the electricity for that charging station.
Absolutely.
We are.
So,
We are.
in a meter, so
Okay, all right, good. So is that the DOT employees only?
yes.
Really? Wow, okay. And I see,
Now, there is grants along the 95 to corridor and 395 corridor for future fast charge stations, but that has been delayed implementation. We don't know if we'll get one in Norwich or not, but that Norwich town area is a prime spot for the intersection of 395 and 2. And we've been working with the COG, but they're waiting for these grants to get all vetted out through the feds.
And we're talking about level 3 chargers there, I assume?
Yes.
Because the level 2 they're faster, but I mean, they're not.
You're gonna wait a while.
well, yeah, if you're just stopping there to charge, yeah, exactly, yeah, those are overnight type.
So you need a supermarket or restaurant to get something out of the oven, or you can sit for a while.
Guy hanging out customer service today when I was over there.
So lastly, Mary Lou, I noticed we have 2 car washes going in on Route 82.
Yes, we do.
Wow, so that'll make 3 car washes on that street, is that right?
Correct.
Shut down.
One will shut down?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's okay, that was not a good. All right, so we'll have 2. Oh, wow. So I can wash my car twice on the way to Walgreens.
Awesome.
All right, that's all I had on the leadership team up template. Were there any other questions or comments on that?
I had one other quick question. The newspaper was reporting the last week or two that the city is apparently tearing down a dam in the Yantic River. Does that have any impact on us in any way?
we don't have any facilities off the Yannick River.
Okay.
That tends to flash and not be very consistent throughout the year. But yeah, I was not aware of that, the city tearing anything down, it won't have any impact on us at all.
Might have been a dream, but I think I read it.
I beg to differ with you on Colonial. I like that place.
Really? I never had good luck. I don't know why. Maybe it's just me.
Did you ever have the guys detail the inside of your car?
No,
It
no.
was a good deal.
I get the sense that that's kind of what they were set up for. I just need to think
Yeah.
watching the outside and so on.
Well, if you wanted a quick detail of the car, you don't have to make an appointment somewhere and spend $200, you know? I mean, it's not a $200 job, but, you know, it cleans it up for you in a quickie.
Yeah.
I thought it was good.
All right.
Just one.
Okay, thanks. All right. All right. Moving on to the financial update. Are there any questions or comments on the financial update? Well, put a lot of effort into this, come on.
And the statements came out a little late this week because we did have a little general ledger issue that got resolved nicely. But somebody had put in a journal entry of millions instead of thousands or hundreds. So it took a little while to reconcile that. But everything balanced.
All right. All right, well, thank you, Laura, regardless of having no questions or comments from the board. All right, moving on to the CMEC update. I can report that CMEC did not meet since our last meeting. However, we did receive an email from David Meisinger. He was letting the board know that ArcLight Capital had entered into agreement to sell its subsidiary, Great River Hydro LLC, to a subsidiary of Hydro Quebec. Now, Great River Hydro was the project that we just got on the books and at CMEC, which increased our green energy portfolio. David said in his email that he considered this to be a potential benefit to CMEC because CMEC has an existing relationship with Hydro Quebec. That's one of our other projects. And Hydro Quebec has higher potential to hold Great River long term and not just flip it for money when it's beneficial. Hydro Quebec also has a slightly higher bond rating than ArcLight Capital. And lastly, David learned that Great River Hydro is considering adding utility scale solar to land they already own. And CMEC may be able to take advantage of that going forward. Are there any questions?
No.
All right, hearing none, moving on to agenda item 6, which are strategic presentations. Tonight we have Kevin Brown as our guest tonight. We'll be speaking on the NCDC annual update. Jeff will talk about the winter moratorium. And Chris will talk about the utility rate, PPA, PGA, communications and outreach. So we'll start off with NCDC annual updates. Kevin?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thanks, everyone, for having me back. I tried to remember being here to do the same thing this time last year, and I couldn't even remember it. I don't know that I knew what I would have told you this time last year, but shortly after I was in this room for this reason, I was next door with Josh Pothier, the city manager and city planner, making a bond rating pitch for the pension bond obligation that was on the table. It was in January. And when I told Josh what was important for that particular pitch, I said, American Rescue Plan, business partner and cannabis. And it dawned on me at that moment, those are the ABCs of what we do. That's the building blocks of everything that we are primarily focused on. And that's why you'll see I've got this little gimmicky play that I've made on that. And Chris has seen this in every board meeting since, that we try to stay focused on those building blocks, and they consume quite a bit of our time. The problem is, or the truth of it is, on any given day, I'll get 8 to 12 phone calls about things that are outside of those ABC priorities. And on any given day, you'll see there's 26, all the letters of the alphabet, A through Z on that slide. We'll touch in NCDC 20 or so of those every single day. And so I've come to actually call them the hang-up criteria. If I'm on the phone and I'm talking to you about the marina and a cannabis operator calls, I'm hanging up on you so I can answer the call from the cannabis operator. So this has kept us on track. And, you know, it's a bit of an eye chart probably to you. It's a working document for us. So let me walk you sort of around the legend of what you're staring at there. Obviously, the big yellow box at the top, again, outlines and highlights the ABCs of our priorities of work and where we focus our top priority efforts. Anything that's in blue is our core mission, either formerly Global City Norwich efforts, or Foundry 66 co-work space specific efforts, or our core mission of BREAD, business retention, expansion, attraction, and development. Because that's why we exist. Now, I could turn all of those into blue text in some form or fashion because they all obviously touch all that. But where there's blue, that's where those day-to-day grind kind of tasks come in. Where you see red or green text on the side, it's an update since the last report. And that's what makes this functional for us with our board to just keep everybody up to speed on what's changed in our priorities. And that's what those numbers are. And it almost asks you to ignore the numbers to the side, but that helps us demonstrate and show to everybody how much the priorities have to change based upon the recent emerging target of any nature. And then the blue box on the bottom right, those are future beyond the horizon kinds of things. You know, once we get beyond the day-to-day knife fight, you know, what targets are we looking at in the long term? And I'll talk you through all of these things that we're up to and that we're doing. So we'll go back to the beginning. American Rescue Plan. So the city of the $28 million that the city has received in American Rescue Plan monies, NCDC has been charged with responsibility for just over $6 million of those. 3 and some change focused on small business development, which really turns in most cases into us helping to rehab or refurb long, fallow, first floor retail space that's dark, not vibrant, not up to code, and no one would ever desire to be in there in the first place. So that's the small business side. Again, that's about 3 and some change. The other $3 million is special projects that have come along that obviously have demonstrated value to get bang for the buck on these federal monies that have been infused to the municipality. Solar Seal being a prime example. And we've got a few others, and I'll show you in a minute. So let's go to the next slide. It's the dashboard of what we're managing on a day-to-day basis. A little hard to see. I'll hit the highlights for you. We opened the window for this Norwich revitalization program with ARP dollars on Valentine's Day, February 14th. And as of today, we've had 56 projects wander into the queue and or maybe out of the queue, either through denial or through award of monies. That represents about 700,000 square feet of floor space that's going to be rehabbed with those federal dollars, and about 400 jobs and a queue of about $13 to $15 million. Now, the program is built as a matching program, 50-50 at a min, perhaps more, and you'll see in some cases it's much more than that. So that $15 million queue really represents about $7.5 million of grant monies. And as I said, we've got about 6 and some change. So we are oversubscribed. And so we conduct business board reviews with 5 business owners from throughout the town, separate and distinct from the sitting NCDC board, separate and distinct from me making decisions on where those monies are going to go. We've held one of those business boards, and we've awarded 9 projects. And we're about to have the next business board next week, and 6 projects will be going before the board for approval. I guess the other thing I'll highlight on that dashboard, so we're about 50% through in some form or fashion. The colors matter more than the letters for you that can't really read it. The 3 green boxes point to about 50% of the pie chart. And what that signifies is that we are about halfway through our available monies in terms of obligated. They may not be spent and out the door just yet, but they're obligated, and those projects are underway. And if you think about it, the downtown bond program was approved in, I think, 2010 for 3 and some change. And it took 12 years to exhaust that queue. And I'm even still managing some of those dollars out the door today. Meanwhile, in less than a year, we've gotten 50% of the monies obligated and active. And we have no choice because the federal government has told us, everyone that received these monies, by December of 2024, every penny must be obligated. So we're really hustling on that, and we're making some good progress in changing some folks' business lives. Again, you can't read it. There was an article back in June on the 9 awarded projects that are out there right now. Question?
Yeah, I mean, maybe you're getting to this, and I'm premature to this question, but I don't know what kind of businesses these are. You know, is there 1 or 2 examples that you could?
This slide and
Okay, I apologize.
Yeah, that's fine. So to date, we have funded the move of street stuff right around the corner here from its old place into the church where my father was baptized, that is now a Triumph shop. We have, so that's sort of a high-end expenditure. That was about $240K for that one. In this direction, Ventura's Barbershop up the street, that was a $10,100 expenditure, meeting them halfway on their investments and everything in between, I guess is how I'd answer that for you.
So what kind of investments do they made equipment or something? Or
Well,
move?
it could be any combination of things. The funds that they can qualify for are fairly restricted. It has to mostly be code correction, some refresh of lights, standard flooring, standard drywall, facilities costs. Their investment, in some cases, is just matching funds for that. In other cases, it's the full-on investment that they've made into the.
So they put in half the money.
At least. If you aggregate all of these projects that have currently been funded or awarded, the aggregate private to public ratio is about 12-1. And that's certainly helped by big investments like Solar Seal. Solar Seal is a $19 million investment. They got $1 million ARP tranche. So there's a 19-1 on the high side that's pulling that, skewing that. And, meanwhile, the barbershop up here, 50-50, 10 grand for 10 grand and everything in between. I would say that the median, if I could call a median on this short data, is about 6-1. So that's the data's there. It'd be provided for you. I don't think there's any sense of me going into any excruciating detail on the projects. But the bottom line is we are activating, again, fallow floor space, and we're either adding or sustaining jobs across the city, about half and half on that particular point. About half of these are creating new jobs, and about half of them are ensuring that business owners can sustain their business and retain those jobs. So that's American Rescue Plan. Any questions on that?
Are the Main Street apartments and Regan Hughes in this?
They're special projects. They're in that second round.
Okay.
And so, as I said, there were 3.25-ish small business oriented. That's everything we've talked about up to this point. The other half are what I've called special projects. So if you wander into my office and look at my whiteboard, it says today's special. Today's American Rescue Plan special, because there are a number of things that I've used this phrase in the last 2 weeks, probably 10 times. Everyone has categorized this infusion of federal taxpayer monies as a once in a lifetime opportunity. What we don't want to do is have this opportunity come and go, and we didn't unlock spaces that had sat fallow for 20 years. This is the time. This is the time to not be penny wise and pound foolish. And if, for random example, an acquisition cost for an old property is considered high at 1.5 when we think it should be 1.25, now's the time to pull that trigger on that $1.5 million cost, because we've got the capacity to actually do that. Or we'll be looking back 5 years from now and wondering why we didn't make that decision. And the Regan Hughes is an example of that. So it's both, the Regan Hughes, 7791 Main, and the YMCA building, all up and down Main Street. Within the next 6 months, you're going to see under construction signs in front of all 3 of those, with 59 apartments coming out of that, about 8,000 square feet of retail space, and then, of course, Madden's Construction's headquarters in the YMCA building. That's a separate tranche, Bill, of those ARP monies that we're managing. At least, and if nothing else, we're managing the relationships. I mean, I'm bringing parties together to make these conversations actually happen, instead of the near miss of, oh, no, he'll never deal with us. We're just not letting that kind of thing happen right now. So that's everything you see there. The ones on the bottom, you don't need to necessarily dig in, but half of those are the projects that will go before the business board next Monday. And the other half are projects that we've invested a very, very small tranche of money, about 125,000, I think, from the dashboard, in pre-design engineering. In my first year, I went on enough site visits where people would walk in with a piece of paper and a crayon and say, this is what I want to develop my business like. And you can't design around that. You can't plan for utilities around that. And so one of the other ways with frankly short money that we're making progress is we're giving out grants of $5,000 to $10,000 to do pre-design engineering, so that they actually come in with a feasible and budgetable and executable program. So that's ARP. Okay.
Are these
I have
people
a
that,
question.
hang on, Bill, are these people that come to you exclusively, or do you go knocking on doors?
Both. We opened the application window on February 14th. We had an immediate 24 or so projects come in. And then we, as I've described to the NCDC board, we've all, like there's a bunch of us, the three of us have been aggressively going out and knocking on doors. I mean, literally the doors to across the street from us, 71 Franklin, or as I like to tell people about, I worked at Thames Hardware when Brian Birchman was selling motorcycles out of 47 Franklin Street as a kid. I don't think anything's happened in there since then. And so we've been literally beating down the door with them. They speak Mandarin Chinese. We've got a translator involved, really egging some of these projects along. So we've had folks come to the door and we've gone outdoor at the same time.
Nice. I'm sorry, Bill, go ahead.
I thank you, Stu. This question may be for Chris and for Kevin, but for example, for the building where Campbell's is now, and I read in the paper that's being converted into apartments and maybe some retail storefront space. Now, do they use the same, like, for example, sewer connection? Are they reassessed, or do they have to replace it if it's a bigger diameter pipe is needed? How is that handled?
So our sewer assessment fee, Bill, is based on history. So if we had a manufacturing space or a retail space that we can go back and look what was there, and we have a light use coming in, then there is no additional assessment or any upgrades needed. If we have a change of use, for instance, if we had a warehouse, they turned it into a restaurant, the restaurant's going to use more water than a warehouse, and they would pay that differential cost for the upgrade of the sewer assessment.
And would that necessarily mean replacing the pipe to a larger diameter pipe, Chris?
The customer is always responsible for a sewer pipe all the way to the main. So the customer is responsible for that. This is just the impact to the plant that they have to pay for.
And like ballpark, what is that fee? What is the fee for that sewer assessment connection fee?
$2,500 for equivalent dwelling unit. So a regular single family house, $2,500. If the restaurant with a lot of seating, it's significantly more. And they don't, you have a show that to a customer.
Okay. Yeah. So for example, that building that's being converted into apartments, and would you anticipate that to be, quite a bit more than 2,500, right?
Yes. And also when you're in the downtown space, opportunity zones, it's 50% of the connection fee. So there's a big reduction to attract people downtown and into those areas where we are trying to emphasize new development or redevelopment.
One last thing for you, Kevin, because you're so involved in this. I know that probably from 1 hour Martinizing, probably the foremost, but there were other dry cleaners on Franklin Street that may have contributed. There's a considerable tetrachloroethylene plume in the Franklin Square that there's like, for example, the Thayer building, the apartments they built there, they had to put in a special sub-slab ventilation system in, and considering the groundwater flow is towards Rose Alley and that pumping station, I mean, when it comes to a place like Reed and Hughes or anything in that general area, it would probably be good to see if there's any volatilization issue with tetrachloroethylene and going forward to make sure that nothing permeates the building. And maybe I can talk to you after this meeting and give you a person's name at DEEP that could maybe assist in that, and at least evaluate it.
Yeah, thanks, Bill. I don't think I could spell tetrachloroethylene, so I would appreciate that follow-up.
Yeah, so I'll give you a call and we can talk a little bit more about that, because that's always been a concern of mine. The developer of the Thayer building did put in a sub-slab ventilation system that he has to test on a regular basis to make sure indoor air is fine. And that plume doesn't stop right below that building. It progresses towards the Shetucket, And I think it's important, anything that happens in that square that is looked at a little bit. So I'll follow up with you, Kevin.
Good, thank you. So that wraps American Rescue Plan. So B on the top three is Business Park North. Let's go ahead and go to the next slide. So this evening, right now, in fact, the Commission on the City Plan is receiving into the record the master, what you see in front of you right now, the master plan for the business park. They will have a roughly 30-day clock on or about November 15th. They will provide by November 15th, they'll provide their feedback back to the City Council. We will have a full formal briefing with consultant Henry Reznikoff and the Commission on City Plan on the 15th. After that, they'll provide their recommendation to the City Council. And at the City Council meeting on December 5th, the council will meet in their zoning commission role and approve hopefully that master plan you see right there before you. The inset picture is really just an attention getter to make sure that everybody understands that at least for the past 6 or 8 months, our primary pursuit with the development of Business Park North was focused on the offshore wind industry and the domestic supply chain opportunities that can provide. That's a years long in the making venture. And I think you're aware that we submitted a grant request. There were 540 some applications from across the country. 60 were selected as finalists, and our application in conjunction with Sector was one of those 60 finalists. So a very important cut made there. But at the end of the day, we didn't make the next cut, which is about half the projects actually got funded out of the $1 billion that EDA had set aside for the Build Back Better regional challenge. One of the very frank, candid remarks they had for us was that this project is just a little bit ahead of its time. Meaning, Italy and Spain are still going to probably feed and ship everything into this industry for the short term, but that we're on target and we should stay on path with this thing forward, because there's going to come a time when we have to be able to construct all those things that go into the nacelle, that big engine that sits on the top of the mast. Those geared hubs and gears and fasteners and all those things are going to ultimately have to be produced in the U.S. And that inset picture is just to demonstrate that, Norwich, which you can't really make it out, but it's the bold text there on the state of Connecticut, is within 13 miles of the state pier, which is within 25 nautical miles of most of the currently leased offshore wind farms that are out in the Sound. We are strategically located for it. We have been in contact and have sustained contact with a few end users who are already, by their own accord, pursuing other defense-oriented opportunities that remain interested in having a parcel in Business Park North. 2 of those, we have about 5 on the hook, but 2 have really made progress, again, under their own power. Grinergy is a South Korean battery company. Lithium, not lithium ion.
Lithium phosphate?
Nope, not lithium phosphate. Lithium tritate. I'm all messed up here. I'm tetrafluoro conversation. They're a niche company, but they were voted the fastest growing tech startup in South Korea last year. And they have an interest in having a base here in the US. They've been to the Department of Defense and the Pentagon. They've spoken to leadership at the Installation, Environment, Energy, and Engineering directorates. And they have made it very clear that they had their eye on a parcel in Norwich, Connecticut. It's promising, but it's not final by any stretch. The second one is a cyber company. This particular organization sees the cyber threat through the entire supply chain of a tier 1 provider. If you consider cyber protection to be an insurance policy, the tier 1 suppliers out there, they're interested in their own house. What they don't recognize is the downstream effect that can come, or the upstream effect that can come if any of their vendors in their supply chain can be penetrated. And so they've created a software solution that is really like a bundled insurance